People might trickle in. And this is being recorded, so others have the opportunity if they miss it. So welcome. For those that don't know me, there are a few faces that are new to me. I'm Dr. Jessica Stansberry. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning Excellence with CELTT. And we created the series to learn more about AI and ChatGPT specifically. And today's teaching talk, we had a teaching talk last, probably 2 weeks ago, that really talked about assignments and how to create assignments using AI and different types of assignments. In this session, we're going to talk about AI integration in the classroom. So this is a teaching talk, not so much a presentation. We will spend some time doing some examples, and Nima is going to walk us through some demonstrations of actually using it, which is really cool. But I want to start off kind of what your current thoughts and concerns are regarding AI integration. So if you could just take a moment and introduce yourself and just tell me or tell us, the group, are you for integration, you against integration, you're not real sure, or maybe there's a specific concern or problem that you have that you want us to kind of address. So I'll ask for volunteers to kind of jump in there, or I can just call on people or raise your hand. Thank you, Alan.
So I'm Alan Lyles. I had a module in my 10-week accelerated course that ended this past Saturday. And the module was on AI. It elaborated on what I talked about in your prior March session, Jessica, regarding math education and using AI. However, I spent more time introducing what ChatGPT is, and then what some specialized AI are. And what I think is important in the introduction is to give demonstration, encourage hands-on. So I'm going to grow this a bit more in the fall, because I think it's important to know how to effectively design queries and to have schema or mental models to assess what comes out. And for example, with ChatGPT, maybe having a heightened sensitivity to what might be bluster or hallucinations.
Okay, thanks, Alan. Bill, I think your hand was next.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I've been using ChatGPT, learning it a little bit and designing a new course. So I jokingly say that the worst case scenario is that higher education's future is all about teaching students how to ask AI the right questions. And Alan mentioned that about queries and getting experience in what, you know, the quality of the answers you get all depends on the quality of the questions you ask and refine it. The thing I'm wrestling with, though, I think it goes back to the initial reactions that faculty had when this came out, is you worry about opening Pandora's box to teaching students about this and showing them the power of it, and then you worry about having them turn around and use it in nefarious, unethical ways in their coursework. I lean towards the fact that it's an unavoidable fact of the future of people's careers. So we've really got to work on pressing teaching students how and where to use it appropriately, while also our job then is to create the guardrails to avoid the unethical people using it, in inappropriate ways. So that's what I'm doing. I'm also wondering how that might differ between undergraduate students and graduate students in terms of their emotional maturity, their motivations, as well as their work experiences, if that kind of changes how you might use this in the classroom. So that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Amar?
Hello, my name is Almer. I'm the coordinator of tutoring at the RB Library. I'm also an adjunct instructor for statistics and MBA students. Bill and Alan summarize everything that I think. I agree, we shouldn't swim against the tide. I think that this is a pretty useful tool that a lot of professionals use. So I don't think it makes sense to tell students not to use it because a lot of them will anyways. It's like telling a student to open a can with a knife instead of using a can opener. The tool is there, the tool is out there now. So why don't we teach them how to use it to save time and become more efficient? And if it's gonna help us step our games up as instructors or faculty in the way we design our assignments, then that's a positive impact.
Good, thank you. Does anyone else have any thing they want to add to the conversation? Okay.
So I just want to say I'm totally new at this. I'm Debbie Lee. I'm the digital resources librarian at the RB Library, and the news has just been exploding with AI and how it's being incorporated into business and industry and so forth. And so I just want to learn more about it in education, how it's being used. So that's why I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for coming.
And Regina here. Just want to add thanks for making this accessible through Zoom. I really appreciate it. And how exhilarating it is to be alive, you know, in those interesting times, the sense of, you know, that sense of drinking from the fire hose. You know, there's so much, as Debbie was saying, and everybody already said exactly what I was thinking, and it's just wonderful to follow, and also not to add to the importance of asking, becoming really good at queries, also becoming knowledgeable about what goes into teaching those systems. The Washington Post, they had a really interesting art, I think it was about where it draws the information from, for example. I don't remember now if it was ChatGPT or AutoGPT, one of those.
Okay.
I didn't have time to read it in detail, but understanding what it's learning, where it's learning it from, etc.
Okay, thank you. Alan, you have your hand back up, or did you not put it down?
Well, I probably never put my hand down, but I do have something else. And that is, I've heard a couple of different AIs mentioned, and I think it's important that when we say AI, that we use the plural, because there are multiple AIs and they're not all equivalent. They range from the less effective and cheaply done to the expensive and still suspicious, that would be ChatGPT, but they also include Wolfram Alpha, which is computational knowledge, or what you might think of as a quantitative browser. And so there you can actually get reliable, valid sources for what it returns to your query. Your query can be comparative around education, policies, nations, numbers, whatever. And it's I think, a viable and underused resource for research, and certainly for professionals to quickly get at what is accurate information. And I had a conversation with someone whom we respect and know, who said, well, everybody knows about that. So I did a query with about 25 faculty. Do you know what Wolfram Alpha is? Have you tried it? What do you think of it? And of the 25, only 3 knew what it was. And 2 had tried it, and 1 was still using it. So I think that there's a huge opportunity for education about, I purchased, and it's inexpensive, but I purchased the premium edition because it gives additional features. So what we can do is educate around, not all AIs are equivalent, have assignments from some of the weaker, some of the better, educate around schema for queries, and then start to incorporate in the assignments from the better sources the kinds of information that might be too onerous to do if someone had to get it de novo. Those are some of the things that I'm working on for the fall.
Okay. All right. Thanks for sharing that. So I'm going to push this a little forward. I've taken some notes on, and I will say in regards to the prompts and the hallucination and the queries, we could do a whole 1 hour session on what are the appropriate prompts and how do we really revise them and revamp them, and what does hallucination mean in AI world. And it sounds like that might be something that's needed. And something that would be of interest and value. So I will work on kind of adding that to this teaching talk series, because I really think that would take, its own hour. I do want to focus. So, we're talking about ethical implications of integrating AI. How do we do that? And there are some initial considerations to consider. So the first one is, what is, as a faculty member, what are your beliefs about the value of AI in your course? So the first question to kind of ask yourself when you're considering whether or not you want to integrate AI is, what value will this bring to the classroom? What is the purpose? And that's something that you're going, and what are your own beliefs regarding AI? Because if you are kind of still on the fence and you're like, I think AI is kind of dangerous, and then you're like, but I'm going to try it in the classroom, and you do, it's easy for students to be able to pick up on the sense of, well, this faculty member is not really 100% with this tool. And then that might create some confusion. It could create some problems in the long run. So if you're on the fence of like, I'm not sure that this is appropriate or ethical, I don't advise you to integrate it. I advise you to kind of explore AI a little more yourself. And then, or even you could reach out to me, you could do it together. But really make sure that you're in a good place and that there's value to bringing it to your course. The second thing is how do you want your students to engage in it with using AI? So is it you want them to use it to revamp assignments that they've already written? And I'm going to show you some real clear demonstration examples on policy, AI policy in the classroom. And if it is like, well, I want my students to use it in the classroom to help brainstorm, why do you want them to use it? So again, going back to that value question, what is the value? What is the context? And what is the purpose? It can't be, well, I think AI is a really cool tool, so I'm going to throw it into the classroom. That's not a lot of preparation. That's not a lot of purpose. It's not a lot of context. So you want to make sure that you have that context. In writing classes, it could be, I want my students to write a first draft, and then I have them input that first draft into ChatGPT, for example, and I want ChatGPT to make it more concise. And then I want the student to be able to compare the drafts. That has a direct specific purpose to that. The last thing before I get into these actual examples from across the state, several universities, it's important to ask yourself which AI use is going to be acceptable to you. So again, that goes back to the purpose. Is it collecting definitions? Is it, I want my students to be able to generate an outline. I want it to write full passages. I want it to do math problems. Like, again, what is acceptable? Is it acceptable that they use it for a brainstorming tool only, but they're not allowed to use it to create a full draft? And that has to be defined in your syllabus, in your policy from day one, whenever we're talking about integrating AI. If it's not, you get into the gray area, and then students probably end up with Pavan, who has joined us today, and they're unclear and unsure on, well, why is this not okay, but I can use it this way? And again, if you guys have any questions or want to stop to comment throughout, please feel free to do so.
So I have a question, Jessica.
Yeah.
As you're going through this, if you could do a couple of things. If you could tell us how much we can rely on Turnitin that's integrated with AI, or some of the other detecting whether something was written by an AI, that would be really helpful.
Okay, we'll get to that in the latter of the presentation. Okay, so here are some specific examples of policy. So this document, which I'll provide, maybe Zara, you could take the link from this. Maybe you can't. I'll get you guys the link. And there is a whole document that will provide everything that I'm giving you now, as well as additional ones. So it's a big document that was put together by Lance Eaton, and it has over 20 different universities and 20 different ways that they are integrating it into their classroom and the policy and the language that they are using to put it in their classroom. So I have just selected a few and then highlighted them to give you kind of a bird's eye view. So for this one, and those are in red. So this is from Salem State University. This is the AI policy that's in the syllabus. This is for ChatGPT and Elicit, and notice it says etc., which means it would cover other AI. It goes into text, artwork, graphics, but what I want to focus on is this person specifically says they're discouraged from using it unless under direct instruction. And then it also continues to go on and say, you know, make sure you check with us before using it. If it is permitted to be used, you have to indicate what part of the assignment was written by AI and what part of the assignment was written by you, and then gives more specific guidelines of saying no more than 25% of the assignment should be created by AI. And what I really found interesting about this one specifically is that there is an actual AI contract that this faculty member has created that they use in their classroom. And I'm going to just go through these examples because I want to get us to Nima as well, because, you know, he's really good at showing and demonstrating ChatGPT. So here's another one that's from a university in Australia. And this one, I'm trying to give you a variety. So this faculty member says, we will use AI tools in the classroom. And in doing it, it actually aligns with course objectives. So notice it's mapping it on and it's saying there's a purpose to you being able to use AI in the classroom. This is an education class for teachers, pre-service teachers. What I really like about this is it says we will co-create the agreement for the use of AI tools to make sure everyone has equal access and understands the tool. So it might be a situation because ChatGPT, one version is free and then there's a pro version that's not free. But if everyone doesn't have access to it and you're creating assignments, then that can create a problem as well. So I really like the approach that this person takes. And what's really interesting is you can see at the bottom here, they actually used ChatGPT to help revise this prompt. And then they gave it credit and told everyone how they revised it. And this is a common practice that you're going to start seeing people do when they're using ChatGPT in their work or their writing. This is one that is for a baseball as American history class, which I thought was very interesting. And this is from Bentley University. And this is interesting to me because the way that this faculty member approaches it is he explains what it is, natural language processing application, but he actually refers people to the Writing Center and says you can get a less sophisticated version using ChatGPT, or you can receive for free the Writing Center, which I thought was a really clever approach and way to go about doing it. And then he does say, here's the guidelines if you do use, this is appropriate use of AI. You can use it when it comes to rephrasing, reorganizing that you've already drafted. You can also use it when it comes to tweaking outlines that you've drafted yourself. And I see people going in the chat as well. Okay. Here's another example. This is from the University Wharton School. This class is called Specialization for Insects, which I thought was interesting. And here it clearly says, I expect you to use AI. at a minimum in this class. So here's a situation where they're saying, I am fully integrating it into the class, and they provide tutorials in Canvas about how to use AI, which is another interesting approach. And then it also discusses the limitations, and it says, be thoughtful. If it's not appropriate, don't use it. And then it does also go back to the acknowledgement. So if you're using it, you need to put a paragraph at the end of the assignment that says, this is how you used it. Otherwise, you'll be violating the academic integrity policy. Okay. And then I think I have two more. So this example is for a social marketing or a social media marketing class. And he refers to all AI. ChatGPT talks about DALL-E, and then goes into some information about why society is taking a while to figure out what's usable and what's not usable. And then gives his position, which I think is important for a faculty member to do, to give their position. So this person saying, I'm tentatively augmenting my policy. And he goes on to say that I know that it's a he, that it was developed using ChatGPT and then edited by him. Sorry about that. Here, you know, he mentions the academic integrity policy and then gives ways that he wants to use this. So clearly identifying the use of AI tools, which seems to be a theme in all of these policies. If you use it, identify how you're using it. Be transparent. And then I just like to highlight how he cited ChatGPT at the bottom and when he made this policy. So if faculty is demonstrating here, I'm using it in a responsible and ethical manner, and I'm citing my work, that also provides further example to the students in what your expectations are. And then here's an example of someone who's not integrating it, but realizes that there's a possibility that people are still going to use it. So he's allowing them, or they are allowing them, if they do use AI, it needs to be properly quoted and cited every time they use it. But any work that's submitted is theirs. So to me, this implies, and it's not 100% clear, but that any contribution, so using AI to find a resource or more information, needs to be cited, but don't use it to write your work, is how I would take this policy. And then this is all options. So this is from the University of Delaware, and I will tell you that us at CELTT are working on something similar to this. This is from the University of Delaware's Center for Teaching and Learning, Teaching and Assessment of Learning, where they give syllabus language in 4 different scenarios, and based on whatever your preference is as the faculty member, you can integrate the language. So us at CELTT are currently working on developing something like this for faculty at the University of Baltimore. Once we have that, we will make sure that we disseminate that out to everyone so that you can choose accordingly, but just to kind of give you a starting point. And that doesn't mean that you have to use this and you can't create your own at the same time. Again, this could just serve as a starting point for you as well. All right. Any questions about any of those policies before I turn it over to Nima to kind of show us a little bit about ChatGPT and AI? Any hands or thoughts about any of those policies that you saw? Okay, I think Nima, everybody wants to see. Oh, wait. Pavman raised his hand. Sorry.
I appreciate it. And obviously you and I spoke about this earlier. I think that you captured really well the need to be explicit. And I think in particular, the thing that I appreciated about the last piece is that no matter what, my recommendation would be to always, whatever statement you're putting in the syllabi or when you're talking about it, to acknowledge its existence. Even if your class is going to be an AI-free zone, the reality is that our students are aware of these tools. And so this is maybe less about the AI side of things, but you know, whether they be using Instagram, social media, etc. I've seen students who have been contacted by people who claim to be tutors that then get them into a chain of really poor decision making that leads to contract cheating, etc. So the more that we can be upfront and explicit, I think the more that we set them up for success. So I just wanted to add that. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. All right, Nima, I'm going to stop sharing so you can share, because I'm sure you're going to want to walk us through some things.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
All right, good. Well, thank you for having me. I apologize that I may have to leave in about 15 minutes because I'm up here actually near Baltimore with a couple of folks from NSA. And but anyway, I wanted to demonstrate this ChatGPT and DALL-E 2 also. As you can see, I'm logged into ChatGPT, but when you first log into it, this is what you get. You get something that looks like this. To log in, it does require that you have an email address and a cellular telephone. It does not accept Google number or voice over IP numbers. And then you basically, if you can put yourself in the mind of a 10 or 12-year-old, then you will do very well with ChatGPT. And as you can see, I've done a bunch of queries here in the past, but I'm going to do some more just to illustrate what I use it for instance, in the classroom sometimes. To work with it, you just go in here and you type in what it is you're after. So I'll do a couple of technical stuff and maybe something that's non-technical. Let's say that I have a file right here, which, and I did this before, I think, Jessica. If I have this file, which has, in the world of computers, we oftentimes deal with having to deal with large sets of data. And this one is actually fairly organized, but it's still a bunch of text that's thrown in there. And I'm interested in fetching all the Hotmail accounts and let's say all the Gmail accounts, or and I want to know how to do that using the Unix grep command. So I can come here and write me the grep regex regular expression for fetching Gmail and Hotmail emails. So there you go. And of course, it says something went wrong. And if you're not on the paid version, then this can happen sometimes. Don't let it bother you too much. I'll just try it again. Oops. There we go. And it says, sure, here are two regular expressions that can do that for you. I can do both of these, but I want one that does, so that's very nice, but write me a single regex grep statement to fetch Hotmail and Gmail addresses from a file. So here it actually wrote one this time. I'm gonna copy this code and I will come to this. I'm gonna switch to my desktop because that file is on my desktop, and I'm going to paste this command as is. It executed it, but it was a little bit premature. So I need to tell it what the file name is. And this file is called 100 contacts. And there it is. You can see that it fetched all that, and I can redirect that to emails.txt if I want a file copy of it. And there it is. I can open this up, and those are all the Hotmail and Gmail addresses that were fetched. So this is something that administrators and forensics people really appreciate, because writing regular expressions is a pain. Trying to write the proper regular expression to fetch exactly what you want out of a log file or a large text file, etc. So pretty easy to do if you know what you're looking for. You can do a lot more than that. I can go in here. If you're familiar with routing components, I can have it actually write the programming for programming a router. I can say, list the the list, or better yet, and it matters how you ask the question too, as one of you mentioned. Give an example of programming a Cisco router for routing between 5 networks using EIGRP. If you're not familiar with what that is, don't worry about it. EIGRP. But this is, so if I want to do that, I can give it the command like this, and here it actually give a complete example of how to program a router with the commands. The only thing is you have to pick the right IP addresses for your own network. And it explains to you what it did and what you need to know. So these are a couple of technical ones. If you work with Excel, you can literally tell it in column or in cell A2, I have this, in cell B2, I have this. And I'm looking for cell C2 to, have a formula that combines these two in such a way it finds the minimum, the maximum, whatever you want, and it will spell out the formula for you. You can copy it and paste it in there. As far as more, fun stuff or creative stuff, it can write you policies, it can write you resumes, it can write you poems, it can write you short stories. So one of the gentlemen who's here just today actually asked it to write a poem about someone leaking classified information. As you know, this recently happened. And it was such a fun poem that I decided to put it in this book of poetry for my son. And here is the poem. I call it Classified Poem. Once upon a time, in a Discord server so fine, someone posted classified docs without a warning sign. The members were shocked. They couldn't believe their eyes. And soon enough, chaos ensued. What a surprise. The mods were in a frenzy. They couldn't keep up, deleting messages left and right. It was a hiccup. But the posters were relentless. They just wouldn't stop, sharing top secret intel like it was a pop-up shop. The FBI came knocking, asking questions left and right, but the server members were clueless. They just wanted to fight. They didn't know the consequences of posting classified files, but soon enough they realized they were in for a while. So let this be a lesson to all those who dare to post classified documents to a Discord server without a care. The consequences are dire and the outcome is bleak. So keep those files locked up tight and don't be a leak. So this was created in a matter of literally seconds by ChatGPT. You can also go and say, write a syllabus for a course on and I just do technical stuff, but I'm thinking of something that would be non-technical, on introduction to biology, let's say. Since I know nothing about biology, I never took a biology class in my life.
And
so
then
there you go. It actually starts writing it out. What was it?
After this example, Bill has his hand raised. He might have a question.
Yes. Okay, so it finishes it off, and it's pretty cool. There is just very quickly, there is the DALL-E 2, which is also part of OpenAI, which draws images for you. And just before I ask it to do an adorable orca swimming in the galaxy and very happy, and this is what it spit out, these 4 options. And then I had to do one other thing. I had to do a cool raccoon skateboarding near the Eiffel Tower, and this is what I got. So go ahead, Bill, what's the question?
I appreciate the examples of DALL-E. I didn't know what that was, but that's useful too. 2 comments. One's a question. I was getting some draft kind of documents from ChatGPT, and it was ending before it finished. And I was wondering if you knew if there was a word limit on its output, and if so, how do you get around that?
I don't know how to get around that, but there is the limit. So it doesn't go on and on. So if you ask
Okay.
it for something that would normally expect to be long, like an essay or a research paper, you get something that is barely maybe 1.5 page, and then it stops.
Okay, so you
Um,
got to frame your query knowing that it needs to be allow for a specific answer. I also like the poem, and I realize, something that I want to try is write a funny poem on the implications of unethical use of ChatGPT by college students, and show that as an example. The first time you show an example to students, here's what
yes.
ChatGPT can do. And so you kill a few birds with one stone.
So in fact, I'll do that right now. So here, just right.
I don't know when it gets to that word limit in the chat. If you put continue, I think it continues also.
So I have Gary right here who tells me that when it gets to that word limit, there might be a continue button down there. You can click continue and it may continue.
That type continue.
Yes. Continue that and it will continue. You can also take something that's very long and divide it into sections and individually ask for it. But here is write a poem about on ethical uses of ChatGPT. And here it is. The tale of ChatGPT, so grand and wide, a tool of language by OpenAI's pride. And there you go. Invasion of a privacy, a grave invasion, violating rights with no hesitation. So here you go, Bill, there is that one. It can do a lot of stuff. I'm still experimenting with it. It can write code. I've done that in the past. Do it again, write the Python, write the game Pong in Python. So you guys remember Pong? So there it is. There's the game Pong is actually writing the game, graphical, by the way. It's writing it out. So this is one of those areas where developers, programmers are not entirely happy about this, because it can actually write code, and it's getting better and better and better in writing code. And there was a 60 minutes documentary on not ChatGPT, but on Google's Bard. And in it, it actually shows that their AI wrote the necessary program to create the 3D images of all the proteins, the 200 million proteins or whatever that are in the human body. And they presented that freely to the medical world. And by their own account, before that, if they wanted to do this, it would have taken years just for one protein to create the 3D image of that. So you may want to look at that. It is on YouTube. It just came out this week. It's 60 minutes with Google AI. So I just wanted to point that out too. I think you will find it fascinating. So this thing can do some pretty amazing things. It goes without saying. And yes, some people are very nervous about it. I usually don't worry about these things because there's nothing I can do about it anyhow. So I just try to use it and play with it and learn it. That's what I wanted to say. Were there any other questions here, Jessica, or anybody else? Any questions or comments?
Nima, just a quick question. You showed the Python example. Do you know what other programming languages that ChatGPT currently supports? I know, for example, it cannot do Excel, or can it?
It can do Excel. So you mean Excel formulas and stuff? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, like formulas.
Yes, absolutely. You can do Excel. So if and I don't have an Excel sheet really, but for instance, I can say I need a formula in Excel cell G2 that looks for data in A2 and B2 and combines them into a single line.
Yeah, I've done it. I've used it this way before. I was just wondering, oh, you can actually copy the code. Okay. That's what I was
Yes.
looking for, to generate something that you can
That's the
copy.
button.
Okay.
And
Cool,
that's
cool.
true with the Python one too. It just shows up here. You just click copy code and copy and paste it, and you're good to go.
But it
Here's
can't,
another one.
sorry,
Yes.
but it can't create anything other than text, right? So it can't actually create a spreadsheet, or it can't actually create PowerPoint slides. Is that correct?
Not yet, but they're working on that.
There is also other AI-based platforms that can create presentations currently.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Focusing more on
there's a lot that's happening. They're actually working on, you can already write poetry, as you can see, and you can be more specific if you want. So I can come over here, and I've done this before, you know, write a song about write a song and be specific. I would say write a song in the style of Hotel California by the Eagles. So it actually starts, so it's as similar to it as you can see, but it's not driving down a lonely road without a single care. So now what they're working on, and this is, I've actually looked into this, they are working on, so the AI can write the music for it, the notes and everything, and then to create that actual music. So we're going to be there very soon, that you can have, people can just ask it to write a song and then write the music for it too, and kind of put it together. So we're going in that direction. And of course, we already have ability to create videos of people who are not even in existence, and have it be animated and work like it's real, which is pretty cool, but also scary at the same time.
Thank you, Nima.
You're very welcome. Does anybody
Presenting.
else have questions?
I just want to say I'm glad I'm retiring soon.
There's a lot of that out there.
All right. Well, thank you, Nima.
Thank you. Let me
Always a
unshare
pleasure.
here. Stop sharing.
So I will reshare my screen, but I want to touch on the fact. So we've just seen a lot of different examples, and I know that it can be scary. So, you know, we've just seen, I got to get my screen back here, guys. Sorry. We've just seen all these different ways that we can use this, you know, and I know how easy it is. The first thing that comes to mind is, wow, this can really do everything that I'm supposed to teach my students how to do. How, you know, what now? And I think that comes back to seeing this not as a negative, but seeing this as an opportunity to rethink or think more about what is teaching, what is learning, what does it look like, and how can we improve it? So we have like 50 years plus research of education of how we can, you know, make teaching and learning not this passive process. And we usually, because we get stuck or we teach the way that we were taught when we got our PhDs, you know, a lot of faculty that have PhDs, you know, don't have specific degrees in pedagogy, right? So they're in a specific discipline. And as a result, you're thrown into the classroom, you teach, but you usually teach the way that you were taught to teach. And this allows us kind of to revisit all of that research and have a conversation about, well, these tools exist, these tools aren't going away. So how can I figure out how best to integrate them through these different ways of policy, how best to create assignments that utilize AI, or if you're against AI, then, you know, how do I create robust assignments that prepare us or block the use of AI, which is what the first series talk was on. And there are ways to do it. So I think this is a good opportunity, and I hope that we don't walk away discouraged by all the things that AI can do, but use it more as an opportunity to advance us forward and think about, well, it's not going away in society, so how can we leverage this and use this and still get learning to occur, right? So all those skills and critical thinking. So what does integration look like? And that is, we can use it in the class as demonstrations. So especially if you're teaching remotely and you have the opportunity to not be on a university server, sometimes the university server itself can cause issues. When you sign up for an account, you want to make sure that you don't use a .edu email address, because if you do, it won't give you access. So you should use like a Gmail account or a Hotmail account. Sometimes it can cause issues if you try and use your UBalt account. And you can use it in the classroom. So, you know, it might be, you know, you want to introduce one of the examples we talked about last week on the Teaching Talk series was, let's say on the first day of class, after you review your policy, you have a discussion about AI, and let's say you're teaching accounting, and I'm not an accountant, that's not my expertise. So I want to get students interacting with this, but I also want to get them excited about accounting. So one example you could do is say, go to ChatGPT and tell me all the things you know about accounting. And it gives you an opportunity to kind of have them using the tool to look at it and then ask them reflective type questions. What did you learn about accounting that you didn't know before? What might you find interesting about this topic that we can talk about in this class? And then you're providing, you know, the teaching and the expertise from that point on. The other thing to remember when you're using any kind of AI is AI has bias, it has errors. It is trained on information that is biased and that has errors. So there are inaccuracies. So even though there is a panic, like, oh, it's going to replace me, you still need to have the expert to go through the material to know what's accurate and what's not. And it's a really good exercise on data literacy. It's a really good exercise on misinformation and bias. So, you know, just because something spits out, you know, I've put classroom exercises in there, and the information not always is accurate. If I'm a student, so we're talking about detection, if I'm a student and I went to ChatGPT to tell me more about aggression and social psychology, and I know that what it's saying is inaccurate because I'm the professor, the student doesn't necessarily know that. So now that's a signal to me that ChatGPT was used without giving it credit, and maybe I need to look at this other person's assignment, or maybe I need to have a conversation with them. So that's just a few examples. You know, we've had a lot of material in a short amount of time. So I want to take some time, and if you have thoughts, concerns, questions, you know, this is an opportunity for you guys to engage with your peers as well. Bill.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm have an advantage because I don't use a textbook in any of my classes anymore. So the material is largely kind of put into my own words and my own concepts, my own frameworks. And I think that approach is real useful because then it makes it difficult for AI to go on the internet and find answers, because I've put it in a context that's very specific to my course. So I kind of like this of allowing students to use ChatGPT as a draft or to get information to then apply to the course. You know, it's a research tool less than a writing tool is kind of what it is. And so I have to be careful in how I frame my essay, short essay questions and whatnot to make sure it's not something that could just be pulled off of the internet. I was going to say something else, but I can't remember now. So
on that note too, Bill, it won't, if it's ChatGPT, not necessarily other forms of AI, but ChatGPT can't do information past 2021. So if your essay questions are structured on like integrate current events of 2022 or this specific event, ChatGPT isn't going to be able to do that. So that's another bonus with this is, you know, when we're talking about teaching and really getting students to understand concepts, application is the key, and being able to take real world events and saying, okay, apply this. The example I gave in the first teaching talk was, when I teach aggression, social psychology, I have my students create a PSA on domestic violence. And then they have to take all of the tools that they use to create the PSA, like persuasion, which is taught in social psychology as well. What specific elements did you integrate to make this PSA? What about aggression shows up in this PSA? So really kind of applying those concepts, and ChatGPT can't do that, at least not yet.
Yeah. Well, I got you. A quick question, Jessica. Are you preparing a resource guide for faculty on the different AI? To Alan's point, there's a lot of different AI out there. Is there some directory you're creating that says, here are the text generators, here are the image generators, just kind of that listing, I guess, that we should all be aware of?
That's a great tool. Right now, I just recently finished developing the resource on the CELTT web page. There is underneath the emerging learning technology section, there is artificial intelligence. If you click on that, it will give you the link. In fact, that's a good spot to go. It will give you the link to that AI policy document that I was pulling examples from. Pavan has something on there as well in regards to academic integrity. It does have also some examples that include DALL-E, and all those examples, most of them are from NEMA. And then I will add a section. I will begin to work on a section because we don't have that specifically here, all the different types of AI, but that's where you will find it once we get it done. But utilize that resource as well now, because it does have the things that are linked to here as well. And Pavan.
Yeah, so I wanted to throw out a couple of quick things, and I definitely want to touch on the detection thing, because I knew that was going to be a popular topic. One is Jeff Elwell, the associate provost, is starting to pull together a group to focus on the campus-wide academic integrity conversation. And I know AI/ChatGPT has been one of the topics that's been identified. And I think really the goal is going to be to try to find the balance of accountability and integration, like Jessica was talking about, because what we want to make sure is that whatever policy becomes allows for the ability to use it for learning and not just a cold ban of it, because I don't think that that's going to do anyone justice. So I just wanted to throw that out, that I knew that conversation was coming. I apologize if you can hear the weed whacker in the background. Of course, they chose this moment to start. The detection front is a really important question, and I have some very unsettling answers to offer, in that I don't think that I've seen anything that is reliable enough to hang your hat on. I know that I think it was GPT-0 was the one that got a lot of pub, and Turnitin has rushed out
And
there.
Hugging Face. Okay,
yeah. And so I am concerned, and obviously we use Turnitin for our plagiarism detection. It has merits, but whenever its final product comes out, all of those things are still about interpreting the results. And so the best advice I can give you is to not, as of right now, I haven't seen a single form of technology that is reliable enough to say to a great degree that we know for a fact that this is AI generated. I think one of the generators, they ran the Constitution through, and it said that there was a 95% likelihood that it was AI generated. So I say all of that to say that it's a really complicated issue, which kind of brings me to the last thing I wanted to say. And one of the things that I've heard be the most effective in framing this for my conversations or my thought process is this idea of what comes with the responsibility of authorship. And so some of the research conversation that I've seen is centered around this idea of the reason why they're not allowing some AI-based attribution is that authors have to be accountable for their work and be able to speak to concerns. And so to me, kind of introducing that concept on the front end can be a very powerful tool. Is it going to get by that student who's trying to skirt the system? Probably not. But even before AI, there were methods to skirt the system. And so I don't have comforting words there, but the integration elements that Jessica talked about in terms of offering different assignments early in class, offering some things where they have to free write that can give you a sense of things are good starting points, but the technology is always chasing the advancement. So those are just some general thoughts I can share.
Thank you, Pavan. Amar?
Yes, Jessica, I just have a question. If, let's say I integrate AI or ChatGPT specifically into my class, will all the students have equal access to ChatGPT? I'm not really sure. Can people make ChatGPT accounts anymore? Is there a waiting list, etc.?
So it depends. There is, everyone theoretically, ChatGPT is free. So theoretically, if you have a computer, you have an internet connection, you should have access to ChatGPT. With that being said, to create an account, as long, again, that they're using a personal email that's not affiliated with the university, if sometimes it will say there's a wait list and then they won't have access for a while. It depends on the day. Like, I mean, I have no other easy answer for that, except that's really, it just depends on the day. What I do for myself is I created an account and I used a Gmail account and I bookmarked it, and I never leave. I always go back in through the bookmark, so I never have any issues. But I know Nima, when he works with it, he never has a problem getting one. So it just depends. And I do know that there are higher traffic times. And what those traffic times are specifically, I'm not 100%, I couldn't say, well, 10 to 11 is the highest traffic time. That's why I think using it, if you can get it to where you're using it in the classroom as a group, provides the best access, because then you can do it as a group, or, like if you're on campus, or if you're working remotely, teaching remotely and having them do assignments, providing one way that you can get around that access if they don't is, let's say you want to have ChatGPT write a paragraph on the importance of research methods. You do it, you have ChatGPT do it, and then you provide that source to the students.
Awesome, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I also, before I ask Alan, if you click on the image in the chat, it should take you directly. Nope, that does not. I will fix that and then send that link back out. Sorry about that. Alan?
What I want to do is reframe what we're discussing about catching cheaters and discouraging cheaters. I know it's an important part of the conversation, but it seems to me that that's a conversation at orientation, and that's a reflection of who the adults are who come to our university and their propensities. And during orientation, we can provide information, expectations, and standards. The most powerful example of this I saw was as a full-time faculty member in the School of Public Health at Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. There was a glossy student publication that comes out, and this particular issue was someone who the prior year had plagiarized some work. And this was a professional who had come for an additional degree. And of course, their academic career was terminated. It was noted on their permanent record, and it had profound repercussions throughout their attempt at salvaging their career. So I understand that people are in school that might seem distant, but many of our students are also working full-time, and linking this to the potential reverberating negative consequences in a work setting if there is an academic integrity notation on a transcript, or the behaviors that we're training you so that you can perform with integrity your own work will show up in the workplace to obviate those kinds of potential problems. I only speak from healthcare, but in healthcare, there is a really high sniff factor on this stuff.
Thanks for that, Alan. And does anyone else have any thoughts or comments or questions overall? We will be having the next conversation, because I want to be mindful of your time. It is 1 o'clock. Our next conversation is going to be April 27th, which is next Thursday. And it will also be through Zoom. And we will talk about assessment specifically during that topic. So how do we need to think about assessment now that we have AI? So it's just another way to kind of continue the conversation and to talk about how we can shift, hopefully, our perceptions over time into using this as a positive in the classroom. And I go back to what I said in the very beginning, that it's not going away. Nima said it's only going to continue to improve. So let's take this as an opportunity to really talk about teaching and learning and how we can use the tools in an ethical and responsible manner, demonstrate that to our students, and chances are they probably will be using it in the workplace at some point in time. So let's, take this as an we are the University of Baltimore about community engagement, and our population works. So it's a great conversation for us to be having. Any final thoughts? Or please take the survey link, because it's helpful information. I dumped it in the chat, or you can click on the QR code that's present on your screen. That should take you there as well. Does anyone have any questions about any of the other or final thoughts or comments? It's been a pleasure. Hopefully I'll see you all next week.